and welcome to this Strontium video. My name's James and today I am going to be running you through our industry analysis video for the February 2020 OCS case study sitting. Now of course today we are dealing with Lottie Graphite, who are the Gorland based manufacturer and retailer of a range of premium pencil products. Now, before we go any further with this analysis, I would just like to reinforce the purpose of this video to you. I would like to say that this video is not designed to be a replacement to the industry analysis pack itself. It's meant to be a supplementary product where I go through the pack and highlight and bring out some of the key issues that I feel will be relevant to you in your exam. So we very much recommend that you read the pack in full first and then use this as a supplementary product after you've completed your reading. So before we dive into the actual industry itself, I would like to take a little bit of time to set out and to remind you of your role within this pre-seen company. And so you can see this role on screen at the moment. And as usual at OCS level, you are a finance officer working within Lottie Graphite's finance department. And so in recent months, your principal responsibility has been to prepare budgets, weekly and monthly management accounts, and provide cost information to management as and when required. However, you're also required to work in a number of different other areas of the business on non-management accounting tasks. And so, for example, you may be asked to assist with the preparation of things like financial statements, answer queries with regards to things like financial reporting, and also assist with analysis of other information, so things such as sales, payroll and purchases information, and you will also have some level of involvement in decision making. So I thought that would just be useful to reinforce as a reminder before we dive into the first section of our industry analysis today. Now, in terms of the actual analysis itself, the first place I would like to start is to look at a bit of a history of the pencil industry to give us a nice bit of context, a nice bit of backing to the wider analysis that we're going to be doing about the modern industry. So one of the first things to note when looking at the very early history of the pencil is that the modern day pencil that we sort of know and recognise today is actually a fairly modern development. And if we think of the early history of this industry, what we're actually looking at are a range of sort of precursor writing implements, i.e. ways of marking paper, marking parchment and other substances before the actual existence of a granite-based pencil. So we know that prehistoric man used a range of different substances, things such as charcoal, things such as chalk, mixtures to mark and paint things like cave walls. These are obviously very, very famous, and I'm sure you'll have seen images of them in some places. In Roman times, types of styluses were commonly used, so we see lead-based styluses, and these were commonly used to imprint letters or to mark numbers onto wax-based tablets again. So here we're talking about maybe sharp implements marking lines onto a soft tablet surface, not necessarily the transfer of graphite or ink onto parchment as we see in the modern day. And over time we see this evolve into the use of lead-based styluses and papyruses as a method for writing. Now, one of the key points that comes out of the early history of pencils is that paper wasn't actually sort of introduced into Europe until around 700 AD. So this substance was first invented in China, didn't reach Europe until about 700 AD, and then didn't actually spread in terms of being a widely used substance until the development of large-scale paper mills in around the 1200s. And so again, what we can see here is that the use of ink or sort of graphite-based writing implements took their time to be established, especially in Europe, despite wider prominence in Asia. The 12th century is also the rough date, which is believed to have seen the introduction of an early form of the pencil known as the plummet, which was essentially a metal, so either lead or silver stylus, and again this was used to mark lines on parchment. So straight away from the early history here, there are 2 points we can make. Firstly, we can see that there are, of course, a range of different writing implements available to us, not just pencils. This is very much reinforced by the development of the writing implement over its early history. But the other thing to remember, and this sort of links into the first point I've made, is that in the modern industry there will of course be a range of different substitutable products available. And again, we can see this just by the numerous different ways that people marked or wrote numbers or letters on a range of different substances, from wax-based tablets all the way through to paper, in the early history before we see the development of the modern pencil that we know today. And so this theme of sort of competition and substitutability is an important one for you to consider when thinking about the modern day pencil industry and Lottie Graphite. So if we scroll down a bit to the 16th century, another 16th century is a very important century in the development of the modern pencil. And it is here that we see the first, what we would think of as a modern wood-cased pencil develop. So around 1565, we see a fairly important date in the history of the pencil, which is the discovery of a large deposit of solid graphite in Cumbria in England. And so what we see here is actually a sort of natural discovery. The discovery of this particular raw material really facilitates and really kickstarts the development of this particular type of writing material. And so what we can really see here is that we have a key raw material which will obviously underpin the industry as it develops going forward. So among its many uses, graphite was found to have a use as a writing implement, although it was discovered that the softness, the brittleness of this material required some form of encasement to prevent breakages during usage. And so initial forms of encasement included things such as the use of string or sheepskin. However, it was in Italy in the 1560s that the wooden casing or the wooden holders that we use today when writing with pencils, these were first developed during this period. And the original method that was developed at this time involved gluing together two carved and hollowed out pieces of wood around a graphite center, and this is essentially the same method that is used in modern pencil production here. And so we can straight away see how, although this is quite a recent discovery in terms of the history of sort of the length and breadth of history, we have here quite a simple product and quite a traditional product, the production of which has remained fairly unchanged throughout its history. And so this is of course a really interesting point and reinforces to us quite a sort of a key fundamental point about pencils, which is that they are a fairly simple product and they are fairly sort of traditional in nature. And so this is interesting to think of in the context of things like innovation and product development in the industry. How do we go about doing this when we are still producing a product which has essentially remained unchanged for about 500 years since its initial inception? Moving on to the period between the 17th and 19th centuries, and again here we see a number of developments which sort of remain and underpin the modern pencil industry. And now one of the main developments we see in this area was the use of graphite powder in producing the spindles, the cores of pencils. And so in the Napoleonic Wars, towards the end of the 1700s and the start of the 1800s, we see a little bit of a problem developing in France. So France was at war with Britain, and France then of course would have been blockaded, so wouldn't have been able to access Britain's key raw materials, which included its solid graphite supplies from the mine discovered in Cumbria in the 1560s. And so what we see here is this shortage of this key raw material actually leads to a development in key production techniques and other key areas of pencil production. And so in 1795, we see a French officer invent a technique where graphite powder and clay were mixed together to form rods and then solidified in a kiln. And now for those of you who have read the pre-scene, you will see again that this is the method that is used by Lottie Graphite to make their spindles today. And so again here, this really reinforces to us the long-standing nature of production techniques in this industry. So this period also sees the beginning of some of the other innovations that we would come to associate with pencils today. So we see things such as the development of different shaped pencils, so hexagonal or octagonal shaped pencils. We see things such as the development of erasers, which were added to the ends of pencils in around 1858. We see things such as pencil sharpening devices being developed to reduce the risk of broken lead during sharpening. We see the first coloured pencils invented in around 1834, and we also see the initial first mechanical pencils being developed. And so what we have here is a period where the modern day pencil really begins to take shape with a number of the features that we commonly associate with pencils to this day. Many of them were developed in this particular period. And we also see the growth in popularity of the industry and of pencils as products. And estimates suggest, as you can see on the screen, that nearly 250,000 pencils were in use in America on a daily basis by the end of the 19th century. So 17th to 19th century as a period I think is really crucial in the modernization and development of the modern day pencil industry. So we see this industry begin to take shape during the mid-19th century, and then at the beginning of the earlier 20th century as well, we really see this industry begin to boom, and we see many of the big name manufacturers that you will sort of come to get to know over the course of this analysis coming into existence. And we also see the beginning of the mass sale of pencil products in this period. This isn't just in some of the wealthy nations around the world, and we also think such as the globalization of this industry occur with the reduction of things like trade barriers, really spreading this product around the world. While we also see the continuation of innovation in this period and in this industry. So things such as the wide availability of coloured pencils for a range of different functions is sort of developed here. And also we see things such as the adoption of cedar wood as a material for use in pencils, and also things such as the safety requirements surrounding pencils begin to take shape here. So the use of things such as toxic pigments in pencil products starts to be addressed towards the end of this period. So here we really have a period of development, of modernization, and of continued innovation in the industry. So what does all this mean for Lottie Graphite, our pre-scene company? So as I talked about earlier, one of the most interesting points about the history of the pencil is how many of the sort of the production techniques that were initially used in the sort of the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s are still used in the manufacture of these products today. So the traditional nature of the pencil industry and the production of products is a really interesting point to take from the industry. And so we see here how techniques such as the production of wood casing and also the granite and clay mix for the spindles of pencils have been around for hundreds of years. Now we know from the pre-scene that both of these techniques are still employed by Lottie Graphite as part of their modern sort of production operations, and therefore we see a really sort of interesting mesh in this industry of traditional long-standing processes and techniques being employed as part of a modern, highly mechanized, highly automated mass production environment. From the industry's history, we also see the importance of certain key raw materials to the manufacture of pencils. So there are a number of different times throughout the industry's history where we see a shortage of key raw materials, like during the Napoleonic War and the shortage of graphite here. And we see how this has then fueled certain levels of development and innovation within the pencil industry. And so quite simply here, this sort of shows that ensuring Lottie Graphite has a continued and sustainable supply of key raw materials, so things like graphite, for instance, is a really important part of ensuring the company is successful in its development going forward. And finally, one of the key points that sort of underpins the entirety of the industry's history from about the 1500s is the importance of innovation. On the one hand, you have pencils which are really fairly simple, straightforward, basic products. However, what we do see throughout the industry's history is a range of small, incremental innovations. So these could be things from the development of erasers all the way through to coloured pencils. Now, this clearly, therefore, shows us that it's important that companies like Lottie Graphite continue to develop and expand their product ranges, produce new sort of innovative designs going forward. And we can see this replicated by Lottie Graphite's fairly innovative company culture and their continued desire to expand their product range, which we can see via the development of the Pexco pencil and the tablet stylus products that they are looking to develop. Having watched this sample, we'd like to take the opportunity to draw your attention to a few of the other products that Strontium offer in relation to the case study exams. Now, the first of these is a study text, and this study text is available for all three of the CIMA case study levels. This study text contains comprehensive advice on how to pass the relevant level case study exam. This is advice ranging from tips on how the exams are actually marked and what you need to do to get these marks, all the way through to actually writing style and other key advice. These study texts are then supplemented by course videos, and again these course videos touch on some of the key ideas that you need to abide by, that you need to be aware of when looking to pass your case study exams. For individual sittings, we then produce pre-scene analysis videos. Now, these are a range of videos where an expert in the office dissects the pre-scene in minute detail, bringing out some of the key points that you need to be aware of and really giving you a thorough understanding of the company for you to take into your exam. These pre-scene analysis videos are then supplemented by our industry analysis pack. Now, you'll be aware of this if you just watched our sample video, but essentially what this pack contains is an analysis on the industry behind the fictional case study company. So we look at the industry itself, competitors, things like that, really dig into detail here so you don't have to do this as part of your revision. And then crucially, we compare this to the case study company. So what we have here is a video that you've just seen a sample of, but the main thing we produce in this regard is an industry analysis document. On top of these products, we then produce mock exams. So there'll be a range of different mock exams for each case study sitting. And these are designed to be as real life as possible, as close to the real life exam as possible. So we provide not only a range of mock questions, but we also provide comprehensive, detailed model solutions, if you like. So you can compare your answers with the model solutions produced by our experts in-house. On top of this, you can then also choose to have the solutions that you create to our mock exams marked and then personalised feedback provided by CIMA qualified accountants. Now, on top of all these options, we also offer a comprehensive masterclass. And what this masterclass is really good for is those sorts of people who maybe have decided to study for the exam at the last minute, or those of you who just want a sort of comprehensive overview of everything that the exam will cover. And so these are comprehensive recordings which you can either watch live or which you can watch as recordings, covering everything you need to know about the exam. And finally, we do have a lot of confidence in the quality of our material. So if you purchase our full course pack, And if you don't pass your exam, unfortunately, using this pack, then we will offer you a pass guarantee. Essentially, we will provide you with free materials for the next course sitting. So all that's left for me to say is, once again, thank you very much for watching this video, and best of luck in your exam from everyone here at Strontium.